The Winnipeg Baroque Festival is in full swing, and since March 30th, local audiences have been treated to a stunning lineup of Baroque masterpieces. The festival will culminate on April the 19th, just in time for Easter Sunday. One of the most anticipated events of the festival will take place on April the 11th at 7 p.m. at All Saints Anglican Church. This special concert marks both the solemnity of Lent and the joy of Easter while honoring the music of a Baroque giant who influenced Telemann, Handel, and most notably Bach, the Danish-German composer Dietrich Buxtehude. The choir at All Saints will perform Buxtehude's Membra Jesu Nostri, a powerful cycle of 7 cantatas reflecting on the crucifixion of Jesus. Each cantata meditates on a different part of Christ's crucified body: the feet, knees, hands, side, breast, heart, and face, intertwining biblical verses with the poignant text of hymn. Beyond its profound spiritual significance, Membra Jesu Nostri is also a prime example of the German Baroque style and the genius of Buxtehude as a composer. This promises to be an unforgettable evening of music and reflection. And joining me here over Zoom, I am joined by the Minister of Music at All Saints Anglican Church and the conductor for Friday's concert, Dr. Dietrich Bartel. Hey, Dietrich, great to see you again, albeit here from Zoom.
Likewise, good to be with you.
Mm. We were talking about this off air. I listened to the Membra Justi Nostri this morning. It is absolutely fantastic. How long have you been wanting to perform this work? And when did you pitch the idea to the Winnipeg Baroque Festival about putting this concert on?
Well, we have been performing the piece on and off at All Saints as part of our uh, Good Friday vigil. It's a 3-hour vigil focusing on the seven last words of Christ, and so we'd interpolate these movements. Um, and then last year at a meeting with the other people interested in the festival and participants, I'd suggested this piece to perform it more in a concert setting.
Mm.
And that's not unusual. Buxtehude himself loved to put on concerts of sacred music, and he'd call them Abendmusik. And we can very well imagine this piece being performed in such a sacred music concert setting.
Yeah, and it is 7 cantatas, but they fit within the span of an hour, right? It's not like a massively huge, big work, right?
And exactly, and the intimacy of the work is also reflected by the intimacy of the instrumental ensemble.
Hmm.
uh, and we're so fortunate this year to be able to do this with members of Fidem and Fidibus, Baroque pitch, period
Uh-huh.
instruments. So
Right.
it's wonderful to be able to do that.
So what is the Baroque pitch? What are you tuning at? It's
Well,
obviously not A440.
the A for the what we normally consider concert pitch, it's about a half step, a
Wow.
semitone lower. So we talk about A415, but it's a semitone lower. Just
Yeah.
yeah, makes it a little
Yeah.
more comfortable when things get high.
Uh,
But
yeah.
sorry,
Uh,
there's one other significant difference, and that's the string instruments. And Buxtehude orchestrates this for two violins and a gamba plus a cello. So
and
we
there's a
need,
Thierbo in there as well, right?
pardon me?
There's a Thierbo in there as well,
Well,
right?
you can use that as part of the continuo ensemble if it's available. So, but the violins back then, the string instruments had got strings, and so and not the steel wound ones, and so it's a gentler sort of a more intimate sound.
Hmm. Buxtehude was a master of the organ and a towering influence in Germany, particularly northern Germany. Can you talk about his influence, in particularly on Bach and that famed 400-kilometer walk that Bach took to meet
Yeah.
Buxtehude?
Although I must laugh. I'm sure there were coaches going by or hay wagons that Bach probably jumped onto. But yes, it was quite a and it was a significant enough journey that Bach famously had a 4-week holiday and he stayed away for 4 months.
Yeah.
Uh, and then was a rather indignant that his employers were upset when he finally returned.
Yeah.
But yes, Buxtehude was. I mean, Handel and Handel's friend Matteson also went up to check things out when Buxtehude was aging, and it was clear that they'd be looking for a good replacement. There was a condition though at the time, and it was a kind of a social a safety net. So if there was the eldest daughter of the incumbent was not yet had not yet found a husband, well, that was part of the deal. One reason or another, the neither Bach nor Telemann or sorry, Handel or Matteson took the job, um, and it was probably because it was. I mean, this is really quite surprising. It was only an organist job. So
Mhm.
you were he was not responsible for writing any music for the normal liturgy, but because of all the extra stuff that Buxtehude did, he wrote a great deal of choral music. But
Mhm.
it's particularly the organ where Buxtehude was such a leader, and and that focuses also on the use of the pedal. The use of the pedal is as an independent part of the organ was quite unique to Northern Europe. I mean, in England and Italy, even in France, some of them either had no pedal work at all or
Mhm.
very, very limited. But in the German organs, I mean, there's the famous one in Hamburg from about the same time that had an open 64-foot pipe. Uh,
Wow.
just imagine, right? Your
Yeah.
big pipes, they're 64 feet high. So, but that use of the pedal division is very prominent in Buxtehude.
Mhm. Mhm. When I was reading about the Membra Jesu Nostri, one of the things that struck me about it was all seven of the cantatas have a very specific form. Can you talk about that and how they're structured, each one of the cantatas?
Well, first of all, it's based on this poem by Arnold von Anuf, um, a German late medieval, early Renaissance mystic. And as you mentioned, focusing on the various body parts of Christ. And that poem, there are always three verses for each of the uh, membra, the body parts of Christ, beginning with the feet going up to the head. By the
Mm,
way, the focusing on the head, that those sets of poems become the inspiration for the hymn "O Sacred Head, Sore Wounded."
no, wounded, yeah.
Same poem. But
Hmm.
what Buxtehude then does is chooses um, a piece of just a verse of scripture that he then sets for chorus, which somehow reflects on the three verses that go for a body part. So the body parts of Christ, those three verses are sung by soloists, and
Hmm.
each verse is based on the same bass line. Sort of,
Okay,
it's kind of like a ground bass, and it
right.
repeats with a different melody, of course. Um, and then the chorus that opened that little cantata closes it again, and that happens seven times as we proceed. The
Hmm.
one very interesting movement is when Buxtehude gets to the heart of Jesus. Um, and on that one, he then and we're not. I've arranged the parts a little bit because what Buxtehude then does, he says, okay, put all your violins away, and now pick up five of you, pick up gambas. And
Oh,
so he sets that particular verse for five gambas. Well, we cheated a little bit and we rearranged the parts, and I have them playing with mutes to give a little bit of that gentler gamba sound
wow.
before we then finish with the final cantata.
Yeah, yeah. Do all of the cantatas start out with a little instrumental sort of overture, I guess you'd call it?
Yes, yes, and typically at this point they were called. It's just an instrumental piece that they called sonata.
Hmm.
As a so yes, they start off with these short instrumental introductions before they then go into the opening chorus.
Of course.
And the instrumental introductions are fairly separate. It Buxtehude leaves that independent of the vocal line. So when the choral parts come in, it's different music.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
have these small little sonatas, these little opening instrumental introductions before the chorus then comes in.
Yeah, yeah. And then the three arias and the return of the chorus. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Uh, One of the things uh, I was I fell down a rabbit hole this morning, quite frankly, and I didn't know there was such a thing as organ tablature. I saw like the autograph manuscript of the work, and apparently he wrote it in organ tablature. What is that? It looks completely like bizarre. And can you read it?
Yeah. Well, it's any lute player would and some guitarists then also would recognize it more. So basically, instead of notes on lines, you have the name of the note and the rhythmic part of it written into the score. So it's not on a linear score at all, and it was fairly well known at the time. There's a when Bach wrote his he wrote a set of chorale preludes. He called it the small organ book, the Orgelbüchlein, and he assigned each chorale prelude one page.
Mm,
He wrote the name of the page in first, and then filled up the book with page with chorale names, and then he filled them in.
uh,
Well, there are some cases where he ran out of note paper by the end of the page. He hadn't finished it, and then so he writes in the margins around the side. He then writes it in tablature because you can sort of squeeze it in.
yeah.
But I mean, it's very hard to imagine an organist today actually playing
Mm.
from tablature because we're so not used to it. But of course, guitarists and lutenists will probably say, "Well, what's wrong with you? We do it all the time."
Yeah. Um, One of the things, so each one of the cantatas, it starts out with a little chorus and then ends with a little chorus. The choruses on the recording that I saw are quite small. How's it going to work at All Saints? Are you just going to have choir members doubling up on the parts?
Yeah, I mean, it's SSATB writing, like
Mm,
so, two sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses, and we have a choir of close to 2 dozen, and so we have that's plenty of voices. We have about four people per part, and so that works very well. The soloists also we're fortunate to have very fine soloists in our choir, and so as in Bach and Buxtehude's day, you would draw your soloists from your choir.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I was going to ask, like, did you assign like a specific aria to each member of the choir, or are there specific soloists that you're going to be using?
Well, on our performance on the 11th, I we've assigned just the solos just to five singers.
Hmm.
So a first and a second soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Otherwise, when we do it, because some of the solos, well, most of the solos, they're not huge virtuosic pieces. It's
Mm.
not like you're singing a Handel aria here, or from Bach cantata. So we sort of like on Good Friday when we do the piece again, but over the 3 hour vigil period, we'll assign the choruses to various members of the choir, so more
Mm.
people get a chance to participate that way.
Yeah, and it's beautifully written. I want you to think back to when you first heard the Membra Jesu Nostri. What was your first impression, and what made you just go, I got to perform this"?
Well, I've been performing the works. First of all, as an organist, I just love the Buxtehude organ works. And if we have a chance, we might just have a wee bit of a chance to talk about the Magnificat that we're going to
Magnificat.
open
Yep.
the program with.
Mhm. That's the
But
plan. Yeah.
so I I knew a lot of his cantatas, solo cantatas. He wrote a lot of those,
Hmm.
as well as smaller choral cantatas. And at one point, I thought, oh, this is and this was back in during my studies in Germany. Um, uh, I was had the opportunity to listen to. Um, oh no, I'm sorry. It was a recording I heard first, and I thought, my goodness, that intimacy, that
Yeah.
the beautiful lyrical lines, the the simplicity yet
Hmm.
um, austerity. There was something in that music
Yeah.
um, that. That just said this is not this is not a showpiece.
Hmm.
This is from the heart.
Hmm.
And I thought I've got to do that. And
Hmm.
then at one point, of course, at All Saints, because we have this tradition of a 3 hour vigil, seven last words, seven sections. Here's a cantata with seven sections, or
Hmm.
a collection of cantatas of seven. Uh, just fits like a hand in a glove.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. My understanding is there's going to be some Gregorian chant that's going to be worked into the
Ah,
performance.
yes.
How's that going to fit in?
Well, a lot of worship services, Lutheran worship services in the afternoon and evening, generally, as with the Vespers, include a Magnificat. Now,
Mm,
Bach wrote a few settings of the Magnificat, and a particularly extravagant one, I think, of the so-called Magnificat Primitoni, uh, number 203, Buchswerk, like the that's the catalog number.
mm,
Um, and uh, and and I've played it before. It is a multi-sectional piece, and I've always wondered now what was going through Buxtehude's mind when he was writing these movements. Is there any way of sort of connecting some of these sections with the Magnificat text? And normally the piece has always been performed just on organ.
right,
And then in that wonderful monograph by Corella Snyder on Buxtehude, she talks about this piece and says, but it was probably not performed with any additional singing. Now, the thing is, in the 17th century, it was quite normal for a performance of the Magnificat to alternate Gregorian chant with choral movements.
right.
Less common, but also done particularly in northern Germany, was alternating Gregorian chant with organ movements.
Mm,
So I thought, well, maybe Corella missed something here, and um, and then I went through it again, and it just jumped out at me. There are six discrete, independent fugues
yeah,
in this piece. And what you need for this alternating performance of the Magnificat are six sections.
huh.
And it's like, there they are.
Yeah.
So I simply took the way the Magnificat is normally started, and it's normally started with in this kind of a performance with the Gregorian chant does the first phrase, and then the organ does the next, etc.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
alternating, um, and um, uh, and assigning one of the six fugues plus often it's an introductory or an additional little flourish, maybe a tiny little prelude or a little toccata, a few bars to each one of the sections, and it works beautifully.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
it just opened my eyes that why isn't everybody doing it this way?
Yeah, it's genius. I listened to it as well this morning, and I listened to it. They have the score on YouTube that you can see it. And I thought my first thing was, what a weird little uh, piece. Like it's about 8 minutes, but yeah, it's like every section, every time he comes up to a cadence point, like a big cadence point, he's introducing new material. And then
Yeah.
there's as you say, there's this fugal writing. So you're taking that. Yeah, you're taking the different sections and alternating them between the Gregorian chant and the organ. Yeah, it's
And
remarkable.
it's simply what would have been done at the time. I mean, even Carla Snyder talks about the neighboring city in Mecklenburg to Lübeck, where it was a tradition to alternate organ and Gregorian chant for the Magnificat.
Mm.
So yeah, it just makes all the sense in the world. And it really, for people that don't like a lot of organ music, well, they continue to get a little bit of a break with some Gregorian chant in between.
Yeah, yeah. It's wonderful writing by Buxtehude. The concert on Friday is going to be amazing. What do you hope audiences are going to take away from the concert?
Well, first of all, I think a love of Buxtehude. Say
Mm,
this guy's music is just so very special and so, like I say, so from the heart. It's I mean, he could write very sort of academic counterpoint, but he seems to look more at just just the love of the music, and yeah, somehow it's so intimate. So yeah, I hope to that audiences will say, yeah, this guy is really worth listening to.
yeah, absolutely. Dietrich, this has been so great to talk to you. And I have to say, thanks for introducing me to the Membra Jesu Nostri. It's one more thing I got to put into our classic 107 systems. It's a remarkable piece. The concert on Friday at All Saints Anglican Church is going to be fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me today. It's been great.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to talk to you.
Mm. For our Classic 107 listeners, Buxtehude's Membra Jesu Nostri, as performed by All Saints Anglican Choir, takes place this Friday, April 11th at 7 p.m. at All Saints Anglican Church, which is at 521 Broadway. For more details, visit allsaintswinnipeg.ca or go to classic107.com. I've embedded a direct link to the show page in the article that you can find up there right now. Dietrich, thanks again.
Thank you.